On the evening of September 4th, a rifle shot rings out. Then another. 40-year-old Tommy Ninyuk fired several shots that night from his home in Inukjuak, Quebec. In the morning, others inside the home of Ninyuk were allowed to leave. But for Ninyuk, there would be no peaceful resolution. He sent this selfie to a neighbor during the standoff. And 14 hours since the first shot, he fired again at police. They shot back, and Ninyuk died.
And this is our Inuk table. We call it our Inuk table.
Lucy NOWRA is having some friends and family over for a traditional Inuit feast. There's no particular occasion for the gathering. Here in Inukjuak, having country food to share is reason enough.
This is called inalum. It's beluga intestine, and inside we put beluga meat, and then we boil it and smoke it. It's delicious.
Eating, joking in Inuktitut, sitting around a cardboard table with the people you love. Here, this is the good life. Here being Inukjuak, in the vast region of Quebec the Inuit call Nunavik. Located near the northeastern tip of Hudson's Bay, Inukjuak's climate is subarctic. But you wouldn't know it on this summer day. This place is beautiful. But there's an ugly undercurrent. The village of 1600 is rife with social and substance abuse problems. Add in ready access to hunting rifles, and dangerous situations can arise. Lucy NOWRA lives across the way from where the Tommy Ninyuk standoff occurred. Most small towns would consider armed standoffs with police an extraordinary event. For NOWRA, it's not even the first time an armed standoff has happened on her block.
We arrived to my place, and next thing we know, there was a man with a gun with 3 or 4 police officers around there. It was that house, the brown house, the one at the end. That's how far it was close to our place.
This is the November 2015 incident that Lucy is referring to.
Yeah.
The 18-year-old Inuk man survived the shooting. But not everyone has been so fortunate.
Many people in town have been shot. Some of them have been killed.
NOWRA says all too often Inuit are blamed for getting shot. She believes that police need to do a better job diffusing situations that turn volatile.
It was really shocking for the community. It was like people were dying one after the other in the hands of the police officers.
In 2014, ELISAPI Napartuk's 29-year-old brother Jobie was shot and killed by police. She describes him as a good father who had an oddball sense of humor.
He could have lived more. He was only 29-year-old. He had 8 children. They were all under 18-year-old, and he left them.
Police were called to Jobie Napartuk's house to ensure the safety of his family, according to this coroner's report. He had traces of cannabis and over 2.5 times the legal amount of alcohol in his system when he threw a frying pan and a casserole dish at the officers. The officers went outside to wait for backup, according to the coroner's report. That's when Napartuk came outside, this time brandishing knives. Officers ordered him to drop the knives, but he refused and went back inside the house. Police followed him. The report says they feared he may hurt someone inside. They fatally shot him. After an investigation, police were not charged with a crime for Napartuk's death. Many people in Inukjuak wonder to this day why deadly force was necessary. Is there something that you wish the police could have done differently to have prevented the incident?
Of course.
What do you think they could have done better?
Not to shoot him, like at least use taser.
Members of the Kativik Regional Police Force shot Napartuk. Known as the KRPF for short, they policed Inuit territory in Quebec. A rash of KRPF incidents that led to injury and death prompted Inukjuak residents to band together in 2014. They demanded less deadly force, including tasers, to handle precarious situations. Kativik police in Inukjuak did eventually receive tasers, but 4 years later, in spring 2018.
It's really unacceptable to take this long. Like, I'm sure some of them would have ended better instead of fatally.
NOWRA points to the Kingalik brothers as an example. Ali Kingalik was paralyzed by a police shooting in 2014. A year later, his younger brother Jimmy was killed after he went into the Inukjuak police station with an axe. Their mother ELISAPI says 27-year-old Jimmy was angry about his brother's shooting. But after a shed fire that left him severely burned to the point of being handicapped, she doesn't see how Jimmy could have posed much of a threat to police. Ibil University was in a jail cell at the station when Jimmy Kingalik was shot. He says from his vantage point he was able to see the officers, but not Kingalik.
When Jimmy came into the police station and they gave him a 3-shot, and maybe he was trying to get up again, and the police was screaming and shot him 3 times again.
The coroner's report says police shot 5 times, hitting Kingalik with 4 bullets, the last of which killed him. It does confirm, through security camera footage from inside this police station, that after being hit twice, Kingalik fell and tried to get up before being shot twice again. What the family has trouble grasping is why police didn't disarm Jimmy after the first bullets knocked him down. ELISAPI Kingalik says that she's been waiting eagerly on the investigation being done on her son's death to find out. But the investigation had already been completed in 2016. She just hadn't been told about it. We told her the officers had been found to be acting correctly. Jean-Pierre LAROSE has been the police chief of KRPF since February. He says equipment and training for less lethal force are being implemented, but that it's not as simple as handing officers a taser.
As a limit, you see, we can use it in certain circumstances, and I'm aware of that, and especially up north, when the Inuit has parkas outside, there's no effect on the teasers. So we are looking some alternative impact weapons right now.
LAROSE also adds that he's implementing more follow-up care after violence for both police and family, and that he's spoken to the body that investigates police shootings about reporting back to people such as ELISAPI Kingalik.
I explained to them the importance of explaining what's going on, what's going to be the investigation, and to meet not only with the family, but with the town council.
Minnie Naukawak is mourning her son. Alaka Naukawak died after a 3-day standoff with police. It was ruled a suicide, something the Naukawak family refuses to accept. Charlie Naukawak, Alaka's uncle, says the family's doubts come from examining his corpse. According to the coroner's report, there was no exit wound. But that doesn't make sense to Charlie, an experienced hunter.
I checked the body. I looked at the body. I even took some picture of the body. And there was a teeny tiny little hole right there, right in the middle, right in the center. And nothing in the back.
He says the rifle his nephew used to allegedly kill himself was too powerful to not leave an exit wound. According to the report, Naukawak had burns around the bullet wound on his chest that indicates he was shot from very close or even point-blank range. It also says a Tico brand .223 rifle was found near his body. But Charlie, who frequently hunted with Alaka, says his nephew didn't own a .223 rifle. He says Alaka had a .243 rifle.
If he used that big rifle, .243, which we use for caribou hunting or big game hunting, that's a strong rifle. If he used that, there would have been a big hole in his back.
Quebec's provincial police, who took over from the local Kativik police during the standoff, says that Naukawak turned the gun on himself after they stormed the house. They took that drastic action after 28 hours and negotiations went nowhere. But the Naukawak family says the negotiations were handled poorly.
La te ko pinsuel to ame o hago te mato si ke sut. Siva nak te wona la antu kinya molone police ko te ko to siya na ako nalarot.
Neither the KRPF nor Quebec Provincial Police have negotiators who speak Inuktitut, the mother tongue of the vast majority of Inuit. Out of 48 KRPF patrol officers, 3 are Inuit.
Ikaw ako sa happy ang ito. Kala ko lang po din si kulwa kundingan eh. Tayo ko ikaw ako sa iyong larok.
Lucy NOWRA says she has first-hand experience that Inuk negotiators work. When she heard on the local radio that there was a standoff with police, she drove to the house where it was happening. 3
police trucks were blocking the road, and they were stopping us from going in, but I just passed them. I went straight in, and I continued. I didn't care if they were going to arrest me. Like, I was thinking, my God, I don't want to lose another person. I don't want to lose another family member.
But when asked about getting Inuktitut-speaking negotiators for volatile situations, LAROSE wasn't so sure.
There's special rules when, unfortunately last week, it's the SQ that takes over the operation, and they have their own negotiator. But I think it would be effectively a good thing to have an elder Inuktitut, maybe beside those negotiators, to maybe get involved at least. In what sense, I don't know, but yes, it would be interesting to have that, and right away in the community to have somebody close to the negotiator to help us.
The feeling I get is that people want solutions that are outside of the box.
Yes, yes, I'm personally believe in doing some things other outside the box, having some new alternatives.
Jobie Napartuk, Jimmy Kingalik, Alaka Naukawak all died violently less than a year apart. Since then, there have been others all over Nunavik. In fact, from July 2016 to October 2018, Kativik police were involved in about 10% of all cases where police kill or seriously injure people in Quebec. That's third in the province out of 26 police forces involved. And according to CBC research into police shootings, KRPF has had the most fatalities for any Indigenous police force in Canada. For perspective, KRPF has nearly half as many cases as Montreal Police, even though they police an equivalent of less than 1% of Montreal's population. That means that the KRPF kills or injures someone at 55 times the rate of Montreal Police. When we come back, we'll hear from Inuit who survived their brushes with police and what everyone intends to do about nearly half a decade of violence.
We would just go climb on the mountain, and we would spend our whole day there. Yeah.
Lucy NOWRA is reminiscing about berry picking in the foothills of Inukjuak with her cousin, Ida NOWRA. Soft-spoken Ida is quick to laugh. But behind the laughter is also a twinge of nerves, because Ida is here to speak about the trauma she says she experienced at the hands of police.
It was in October 2017. I was too much intoxicated. I woke up in the hospital, and the nurse said it was by that cop named. He said he's a good guy, so he brought you here. And I said, what? If you're a good guy, he wouldn't break my arm. I said, it was really broken. Like, my shoulder was sticking out, and the bottom was going in.
Ida says she doesn't remember much from that night. She was told it occurred while she was being put in the station's jail cell. She says she spoke to an investigator about the incident, but Quebec's Independent Investigation Bureau is not looking into the case. Citing confidentiality, they are unable to confirm nor deny whether they spoke to Ida.
Inuit people don't complain because, one, they don't get heard. Two, it's because they don't know where to complain to.
Known in Quebec by the French acronym BEI, Quebec's Independent Investigation Bureau is mandated to investigate cases where a person is grievously injured or killed by police. Formed in July of 2016, the BEI have investigated the KRPF 10 times. Many of the cases involve shootings, but not all. One case from April of 2017 involves a young Inuk man dying in KRPF custody at this jail in Pervonatuk. In 2016, Quebec's ombudsman released a scathing report describing overcrowded conditions in jails in Nunavik as third world and unsanitary. The report calls for a complete overhaul for how people in Nunavik are jailed. Another open file includes that of Mina Akuliak, who sustained several broken ribs, 6 fractured vertebrae, a broken left arm, a punctured lung, as well as a lacerated kidney and liver after being hit by a pursuing KRPF patrol car in Namujiak. The seriousness of most of Akuliak's injuries were not immediately reported to the BEI by the KRPF, even though they are obligated to do so. KRPF says that when Akuliak medevaced to hospital, it was thought that she only had a broken arm. They also say that the BEI was notified more than once.
When we noticed that the injury, a few weeks, I think a month later, it was a little bit, more injured and all that, we called back and we told them that.
Yet it wasn't until Akuliak's case received media attention 2 months after the incident that the BEI started investigating. For his part, LAROSE says the KRPF is doing its best under difficult circumstances.
Right now, our police force is, my men is really out of breath, and we are kind of on a respirator.
In 2017, Nunavik saw over 11,000 criminal offenses, 4,000 more than a decade earlier. For a population of 13,000, that's almost 1 incident per person. LAROSE says when compared to the Montreal suburb he used to police, those crime rates are nearly 20 times higher.
Well, I was in Longueuil in 2012 for approximately 400,000 people. We had about 18,000 criminal files.
In June, LAROSE was called to testify as an expert for the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. There he described the KRPF as overworked, understaffed, and under-equipped to deal with the realities of policing Nunavik.
I was very shocked by the amount of work and the amount of major incidents that I've seen in the first 5 months of my job.
LAROSE says in order for the KRPF to adequately police Nunavik, they need 30 more officers. Despite rising crime and population rates, they haven't had a staff increase in 15 years. He also says a call center, more specialized training, and equipment is a must.
It's kind of basic things that we are asking. And I think they understand, but the bottom line, the money has to come.
The KRPF's 2017 budget was $20 million, but this year they currently find themselves in a kind of limbo. While Quebec has increased its funds for KRPF, the federal government has yet to sign off on a new agreement. LAROSE says the 5-year offer on the table isn't much more than the rate of inflation. Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale declined to be interviewed for the story. In January of this year, he announced an increase in funding for Indigenous policing by nearly $300 million for 5 years.
When you look at the crime statistics in communities that have the First Nations policing program, you see a distinctly better pattern than elsewhere. So the program works. It simply needs to have more horsepower.
The feds say a chunk of the new money will pay for some of that horsepower, including up to 110 additional police officers. But those new officers are to be spread out amongst 185 Indigenous police forces across Canada. That's less than 1 officer per Indigenous police force, which means the KRPF isn't tough to get the 30 officers they say they need.
We're way behind what the program is offering us, and we have to apply, and we're not sure that we will have some police officer in Nunavik from that federal program.
LAROSE adds that remote forces such as his have unique challenges. For instance, about 15% or $3.3 million a year of KRPF's budget is spent on moving Inuit detainees back and forth from prison in southern Quebec to Nunavik for trial. LAROSE also says KRPF has a high turnover rate, and training new officers costs KRPF $20,000 more a year than other police forces. LAROSE says he hopes to have a new agreement with the feds before the end of the year.
I believe that the Inuit community deserve a good police force with all the service as they do back in South. And that's why we are insisting in this agreement, and we want what we asked for. It's a must.
LAROSE acknowledges that for many in Nunavik, the police have a public relations problem.
Inuit people don't trust police, one, because they think they're going to get shot.
But KRPF also have reason to be wary. This is the Canadian Police Officers Memorial in Ottawa. It's dedicated to officers who have been killed on duty. Among the 850 names is that of Steve Deddy. In 2013, KRPF officer Deddy was shot to death responding to a domestic violence call in Kuujjuaq. Another officer was seriously injured before the Inuk shooter took his own life.
It's still in the memories.
LAROSE says that, agreement or not, he has implemented new measures to reduce violence and regain trust in Nunavut's 14 communities. KRPF officers now receive sensitivity training from an Inuk elder, and increased efforts to recruit more Inuit officers are underway.
I can understand their mistrust because I understand what happened in the past. What I can tell them is I'm somebody that very open-minded, and I believe into prevention and working with them, and our police officers are also want to get involved, and they want more good relation with the Inuit population.
Lucy NOWRA acknowledges that the police have a difficult job here. She would know. She has had her own run-ins with the law.
I started drinking a lot, smoking a lot. It was my way of coping with the losses that I've had. So it led me to drug dealing. In 2013, I was receiving free. It was a way for me to get free drugs and alcohol. So I didn't think of it that way and the impacts back then because I was younger. And then it all caught up to me. I got arrested, was sent to jail, and spent 6 months in prison.
NOWRA has long since turned things around. Now a 30-year-old responsible mother to 3 who involves herself in the community, she is currently finishing cooking school. She just wishes that some of the people she knew, Jobie Napartuk, Jimmy Kingalik, Alaka Naukawak, had gotten the same second chance. Which is why the self-described loudmouth decided to speak up.
It's very hard for Inuit to just complain because we're usually people that forget easily and forget.
But after years of violent confrontations, forgiving and forgetting isn't coming easy. Most would agree the status quo only continues to worsen Inukjuak's frayed relationship with its own police force. And while change may be just over the horizon, in the vast, isolated land of Nunavik, the horizon appears very far away.
Because it touches us. We know these people. They're our people. They're Inuit.
That's when the kicking and the punching and tearing our clothes off and stuff came about.
I said, honey, what's the matter? And he didn't talk. He did not talk. He didn't speak.
These counselors didn't have the ability or even the capability to be named as a counselor.